Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'll be doing a poem by Elizabeth Bishop called The Prodigal. So please bear in mind that Elizabeth Bishop said that this poem originated from her thoughts when one of her own stepsons offered her a drink of rum in the pigsty at about 9 o'clock in the morning during her trip to Nova Scotia in 1946. Why do I have to know this? You don't, unless a thought bubble appears in your brain while you're writing a higher level exam of English and this poet comes up and you happen to choose it. So, all in all, you don't really need to know the background of the poem as much. However, if the background of the poem relates to the life of Elizabeth Bishop, then definitely you need it because you'll be using it in your answer. Perhaps that was the final spark that engendered the poem, but the theme could never have been far from her thoughts, as she herself struggled with alcoholism all her life. That point? Important, because it relates to her life, right? About the time of her 38th birthday on 8 February 1949, she fell into a deep trough of depression. In an effort to rally out of it, she went on a holiday to Haiti, from where she wrote to Marianne Moore to say that she had finished some poems, including The Prodigal. Ironically, on her return from Haiti, she went into a long and heavy drinking bout. Now, this poem was published in 1951, and in regards to it, it deals with the exile of the alcoholic. Like all good poetry, it functions at the level of the individual in the narrative, but also at a universal level, alright? It explores the metaphorical exile of alcoholism, the isolation, the skulking, the deception and hiding, the lack of control, aspirations rather than action. Now there's enormous human understanding in this poem, despite the physical dirt of odor and order. The heart can still lift to the religious impulse, the lantern, like the sun going away, laid in the mud, the pacing girl, all that, or thrill to the romantic beauty of nature, as it says, the sunrise glazed the barnyard mud with red. The burning puddles seem to reassure. Alright, so in fact, the prodigal seems to retain a particularly benign relationship with nature. Guys, the relationship with nature is very important for when it comes to Elizabeth Bishop. This is one of the main themes and the main things that she's associated with. I mean, of course, alcoholism and her relationship with nature, as you see in the other poem on my other YouTube video that I uploaded, with the fish, you know, that one, that's like her association with nature. Here too, she associates herself with nature, right? She appreciates the delicacy of the animals, like light lashed, a cheerful stare, and maintaining a comfortable domesticity between animal and human. The pigs stuck on their little feet and snored. There's some sense of, I don't know, warmth when she says that, like her friendly tone speaks out towards the animals. Her, like, and even in the other poem, The Fish, how she releases the animal, the fish at the end. So there is that connection. Nature is a bringer of wisdom, alright? The bat's uncertain, staggering flight is a spur to his self-awareness, his moment of shuddering insights, and so his eventual turning back. The poem is kind of depressingly realistic in its evocation of filth and human abasement. This is important, as it says in the poem, even to the saw that always ate her young, still sickening, he leaned to scratch her head. But it is noble and uplifting in its awareness of the spark of soul that still flickers even in the most abject circumstances. Now, this poem is structured as two sonnets of a rather loose nature. They each have the requisite 14 lines, and the first one maintains the conventional octave, sestet division, but the rhyming schemes are eccentric, if not absent altogether, right? So the rhythm is a mixture of iambic pentameter and 4 stressed lines. If you don't know what that means, I suggest that you go Google it, figure it out, because I'll be uploading a video about this, but not anytime soon. Anyways, guys, this is mostly it. Stay tuned because I have a video coming up explaining further this poem. Hey guys, so as promised, so this is the part 2 explanation of this video. The poem explores the wretched, miserable existence of someone, or a man's life, who is merely controlled by alcohol, just like Elizabeth Bishop, the way she was before. The poem deals with the exile of the alcoholic, alright? It explores the isolation, deception, lack of control, and everything that is experienced by someone who's battling an addiction of alcoholism, okay? The poet Bishop gives us an insight into a person's state of mind, the way this alcoholic person is thinking, what is he thinking about, how he deals with the things around him. She experiences and explores the spiritual and physical loneliness felt by an alcoholic. Remember, this is very personal because you can always argue that it's like it has a personal tone because she herself was an alcoholic, back then. The poem tells the story of one individual, but also appeals to people on a universal level. And there is a lot of enormous human understanding in the poem. Anyway, there's a sympathetic tone as well because Bishop feels sorry for the prodigal, and her imagery makes us feel sympathetic towards him. So there is this sympathetic tone that is out there. Now, the prodigal lives in dire conditions where the enormous odor is so overwhelming and overpowering that it has impaired his judgment. He has lost all sense of there being another world other than the one he's living in. The prodigal has lost touch of the world in which he is living, and the only world he knows is the one that he's living in, the pigsty, with the pigs. Now, this may be a reference, a deeper meaning to saying that alcohol is bad. I wouldn't write this per se, but I would say something that it's a deeper message of indicating about how alcoholism consumes a person's mentality, mindset, body, everything, and it gets you down to your knees. It really ruins your life. So this may be one way to break this poem down and analyze it into further meaning, right? Some morning after he has been drinking, the rising sun transforms the ugly pigsty into something beautiful, and Bishop admires the strength of the human spirit where he can find beauty in the midst of great filth. So she celebrates the fact that in the midst of despair, human beings can find a glimmer of hope. So does this relate to her life in general? Because she was an alcoholic as well. She found hopelessness, or actually the opposite. She found love in a hopeful or hopeless man. I messed this whole quote up. You know what I'm trying to say. The world of nature, and in particular the rising sun, has become a source of consolation for him. The character, the guy that she's talking about in the poem. It made his life more bearable and helped him to cope with his suffering and loneliness. But again, rising sun, what is that part of? Nature. Who was associated with nature all her life? Elizabeth Bishop. So there is this personal tone, personal touch of her talking about her own life. The lantern gives the prodigal a sense of hope. He compares the light from the lantern to a halo, alright? The religious image could suggest that the prodigal begins to think of his spiritual life. So this is a deeper meaning. I wouldn't call it an illusion, but it is a deeper understanding and explanation of this poem. The prodigal is constantly searching for meaning in his life, but the image of the bat that is mentioned, he felt the bat's uncertain, staggering flight, is that his search is futile and uncertain, and the physical darkness and blindness experienced by bats reflects the spiritual darkness of the prodigal. You see the connection here about because bats are blind. So does this mean that he is also blind to the reality of life because he is an alcoholic? You have to be able to analyze poems the way I just did. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm using various resources as guidance, but when you read a poem, this is the mindset that you have to have in order for you to get a good grade in terms of poetry, right? Whether ordinary or higher, you gotta be able to do this, to learn, because the moment, even when you're studying, the moment you talk to yourself, whether out loud or in whatever, any way you're doing it, try to break the poem down to you so you will never forget the translation or the meaning or the deeper meaning or whatever it is. So do take notes of what I'm saying and do this yourselves, guys. Anyway, if you have a question, please drop it down in the comments below, and thank you very much for being here. See you next time.